Greetings, folks. Iolair here. I'm very pleased to introduce this brand new guest to the channel. This is Farkle1 from the EU server, who is sailing for us today the premium Tier 9 U.S. Navy Super Heavy Cruiser, or large cruiser, the USS Alaska. This is a Tier 9 domination battle here on Neighbors with no aircraft carriers in play. And Farkle's Alaska is commanded by the historical commander Bill Halsey with a mostly traditional tank build, with a couple of exception points. He takes the steering gears modification 2 upgrade in slot 4, and maybe more noteworthy is that he doesn't take the fire prevention skill, instead taking expert loader and the BFT skills. Now, the Alaska does have many characteristics similar to a battleship, and in particular, it gets battleship duration fires of 60 seconds instead of the more traditional 30 seconds for most cruisers. And so tank builds on the Alaska are quite common, but the Alaska is still a cruiser, and the expert loader skill is very useful for cruisers, and in particular, the buffed expert loader skill available to Halsey can be very, very effective and valuable for the Alaska. So when I watch this replay, as Farkle has lit up the Akatsuki with radar here and sends out a salvo, when I watched this replay, I realized I need to be maybe putting some more effort into learning this ship better. I was very impressed with the outing that Farkle has here. I do know that the Alaska has a very good reputation in the community, but watching this game firsthand when Farkle sent it to me made me realize that, like I said, I need to be revisiting the ship. Now, Farkle did get his first kill by taking out the Akatsuki at Charlie, although that was not first blood. That was claimed by the opposition by taking out an allied destroyer at Alpha. And then we just saw a bug in the replay system. If you attempt to follow shots while watching a replay, they will not track the shots correctly, and we won't have too many cases of that in this replay, but it is a bug, I think, as of 092, just for folks to know. So both teams have sent some significant forces here to Charlie, and so there's going to be a fairly lengthy standoff, trying to get some control over this cap. In particular, the opponents are sending two Georgias, a Neptune, at least two destroyers, one of which Farkle here is killed. And I don't remember if there are any other ships, but the Georges alone are going to be some serious threats to be able to have to try to unseat. In fact, one of the Georges has already pushed into the cap. Oh yes, there's also a Scharnhorst here. So the opponents have sent half of their forces to this cap. So it's going to take a while to try to defend this area. It's going to be very important that the Allies not allow the opponents to breach this flank, because if the opponents are able to push through Charlie successfully, they're immediately going to put the rest of the Allies in a crossfire on the west side of the map. Now, the Allies have lost their second destroyer. That was at Bravo, and so the opponents have successfully secured Bravo, and they have a one-ship advantage, and so that they are getting now a material point lead. We do have this slow boating Scharnhorst here over on the 8 line that looks like he's going to be drawing a lot of attention, both by Farkle here and some of his allies that are behind him, in particular the Dmitry Donskoy. And you can see that the Scharnhorst has already lost a lot of his health quite quickly. Farkle's using a very common tactic here for cruisers, is to be able to fire from behind terrain in order to stay in a protected and concealed position. The Alaska's shell ballistics are fairly similar to other U.S. Navy cruisers. They tend to be a little bit floaty, and so they are able to arc over terrain with a little more ease than many of her peers. We did see an opposing Skonia over on the 8 line as well that could get in behind both Farkle here and some of his allies. That would be a potential torpedo threat on their port side here. Farkle does fire up his radar here, or his hydro, excuse me. And so he's anticipating torpedoes there. He does see some torpedoes coming through, but there is the Skonia. But I should also note here the opponents have pushed very hard into Charlie, and that is giving them some tactical advantage and being able to try to take this flank. Unfortunately, the Allies are not quite able to take out the Skonia, although actually nice shot there by the Dmitry Donskoy after the Skonia went off detection, and he was able to finish off the destroyer. So, but right now the Allies are still down 2 ships. They've lost all but one of their destroyers. Their last destroyer, I believe, was located on the north west side of Alpha. But you can see here that the opponents here have gotten a very good position here on the cap, and so they've gotten Charlie as well. In fact, the Allies are now down to 85 points. They're not getting points from any cap, and so things are looking pretty desperate at this point. And so Farkle's going to sort of stay bowing here. He is going to obviously have to reveal himself. He's not going to be able to be firing from behind terrain. He was able to leverage this island to avoid torpedoes from the Skonia before he went down. And so now it's going to be Farkle and his allied Iowa that are going to have to face off against the 2 Georgias. You also see a lot of fire coming in from behind Farkle from his allied Dmitry Donskoy, and I'm going to be calling out that cruiser a couple more times in this battle. So the Donskoy is doing an excellent job being sort of the flanking long-range artillery cruiser to keep the DPM up on these battleships that have moved into the Charlie cap. Now the Allies have gotten taken down one of the 2 remaining destroyers, so that helps a little bit in terms of trying to get some control over the match. Destroyers are very influential if they're played correctly in sort of setting the pace and control of the match, especially in taking and contesting caps. Speaking of which, the opponents have now taken Alpha as well, and so they've taken all 3 caps. The Allies have no caps, and they were able to get a little bit of the points back by taking out the Skonia, but they are, again, in a very desperate situation. Now, here, Farkle is going to prioritize the Neptune. Neptune has very high DPM. He's flat broadside to Farkle. Farkle is going to land a beautiful, devastating strike. And he also maneuvered this really well so that he would force the Neptune, if the Neptune attempted to send torpedoes, to send in the path of these 2 Georgias. And so I think Farkle made a very good choice there. The Iowa, with his secondaries, is able to take down the first of the 2 Georgias. And then I want you to watch this maneuver. This is a reflection of both the maneuverability and the gun power of the Alaska. So at first it looked like he was going to go to the port side of the Georgia, and no, he slips to the starboard side, and given how quickly he's able to keep these turrets on target, he gets a quadruple citadel on the Georgia at point blank range in a drive-by and takes out the second of the 2 Georgias. And this was the moment at which I realized, man, I really need to start looking at playing the Alaska more. That was very impressive. The Alaska rightfully has a very well-earned reputation of excellent AP performance. It is a game changer in a lot of places. This is why you see the Alaska as a competitive ship at Tier 9. It is very strong, very tanky, and exceptional gun systems. So now that they've cleared out, the Allies have cleared out the Charlie cap, they can take this cap finally, start getting some points, but they still have a significant point deficit of over 350 points. That is going to continue to widen as the opponents have again retained both Alpha and Bravo. Now things have kind of balanced out here a little bit. Obviously the ship counts are now even. That's good. The Allies do have a destroyer, whereas the opponents have now lost all of their, oh no, I'm sorry, the opponents do also have a destroyer remaining. Here we see a ping on the map. There's a request, I believe this is by the Donskoy, for the destroyer to go contest Bravo. Here Halsey has, or the Halsey talent of Hit Hard has just been activated by earning the Confederate achievement, and that is going to improve his rate of fire by 20%. And again, given the strength of these gun systems, that makes this Alaska even more dangerous. And again, like I said, this game really impressed me. He lands a Citadel at like over 16 kilometers on the Iowa. Now, the Iowa doesn't have the reputation of being the tankiest battleship in the game, and he was broadside to Farkle, but at that range, getting a super cruiser round to land a Citadel is still quite remarkable. So now Farkle makes a very interesting choice here. He is actually quite broadside to the Alaska. He's obviously, I'm sorry, to the Iowa. He's obviously waiting for the Iowa to fire, which he just did, but he was quite vulnerable in my position, in my opinion, in that position. But he's made the choice to make the turn here because I think Farkle intended to want to engage the Richelieu. The with his ally Donskoy here that I've called out a couple of times, they are going to be able to work in tandem, focusing down opponents more efficiently if they're working together rather than splitting their forces. And so I think this was a very good choice. But again, it was interesting that Farkle elected to make the turn against the Iowa when he did, because I felt like he was quite vulnerable. But fortunately, the Iowa shot was off the mark, and Farkle didn't take too much damage. So Farkle and his Donskoy are going to be in this sort of face-off with the Richelieu. Now, Farkle is using the armor piercing here. He is switching over to high explosive. But at this angle, even the super heavy rounds of the Alaska are going to have a lot of difficulty getting any consistent penetrations against an upper tier battleship with 32 millimeter plating. He's just going to get a lot of bounces at this angle. My opinion is that high explosive would be the superior choice. Now, the U.S. Navy heavy cruisers, including the Alaska, get a buffed penetration angle with their AP over other cruisers in the game, and that's a key reason that the AP is so strong. And that's all the way down to the Pensacola. That's part of the reason that if the Pensacola is played really well, it can have exceptionally good gun systems. Excuse me. Now, Farkle has just earned himself high caliber, so this is definitely a reflection of how effective he's been in this game. He is getting more high explosive shells in here. Kind of mixed results, getting a few thousand damage. I think he's looking to try to set another fire because between himself and the Dmitry Donskoy, which is obviously firing HE, I think they're trying to get some fires on the ship that he cannot put out. And that will be an effective way to try to get him off or out of the game. The Donskoy is doing a remarkably good job as well, bow tanking here. The Donskoy is not very durable, especially side on. It's very squishy, but it has only a 25 millimeter bow, which means that this Richelieu can overmatch the bow of the Donskoy if he aims correctly. But I think between the very good handling that the Donskoy player has, and maybe some questionable shooting by the Richelieu, the Donskoy is surviving this engagement relatively well. We can see that the Richelieu is backing up here. Now, this is the point at which I was a little bit unsure why Farkle was choosing to fire AP, because he wasn't getting too many penetrations, excuse me. I should also note that the Donskoy was very heads up and sent torpedoes to his starboard side toward the Iowa that's coming around on their flank. These two cruisers don't want to be in broadside positions against the Iowa, and thankfully the Donskoy's torpedoes do find their target and take out the Iowa, and that has evened up the ship count. So very nice recovery here, at least in terms with regard to ships, but the point difference is huge, and so it will be crucial for the team to have to kill all opponents in order to win the game. They're not going to win this game based on capping and points alone. In fact, there's a little less than 5 minutes left, and with the point differential right now, there's no way that they would be able to cap and catch up in time. Richelieu goes down to the Donskoy. Very nicely done. Again, this Donskoy definitely earns high props for his excellent performance in this game, in my opinion. And they've now gotten a ship lead, and then this is a good time for Farkle to get around the corner. We saw some torpedoes from the Skonia, but it's just the Skonia and I think this is the New Orleans, and these ships are not going to be able to tolerate an engagement with the Alaska or the Iowa or the Donskoy very easily, if at all. So now the question is, with 3 kills, is he going to be able to get his 4th kill? Does see the New Orleans here. He has AP loaded here. That New Orleans is pretty well angled, but again, the penetration angles on the Alaska and the U.S. Navy heavy cruisers is excellent, and he got 5 pens on the first salvo, and then a Citadel hit with his rear gun, taking out the New Orleans. That's his 4th kill. Again, they don't really need the cap at this point, although it would be nice for the experience. Here comes some more torpedoes from the Skonia, but Farkle is very prepared to avoid those torpedoes. He did have Hydra running briefly there, but he obviously could anticipate the torpedoes were coming. The Skonia here is frankly overextended. He should have been running, in my opinion, but he's hung around a little too long, and he's now in a crossfire situation. And now's the question whether Farkle's going to get his Kraken by taking down the destroyer, but no, he doesn't. The Iowa gets it anyway. So a terrific match. I unfortunately don't have end screens for this match, but it was clearly very well done. There's no question in my mind that Farkle had to have been top XP for the game. 190,000 damage done, 4 kills, high caliber Confederate, and a devastating strike. So a very impressive outing in the Alaska. Farkle, thank you very much for sharing this with us and the community. It was my honor to share it with everyone. I hope everybody did enjoy the replay and the commentary. And as always, please do leave your comments below. We hope to see you out there on the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.